An Associated General Contractor survey revealed that 70% of contractors are having a hard time finding qualified craft workers to hire amid growing construction demand. 80% or more home builders report the need to pay higher wages, find it more difficult to complete projects on time, and are challenged with finding subcontractors with qualified workers as a result of the construction labor shortage. Meanwhile, more than half of contractors struggling to put hands on tools in the midst of the busiest construction season of the past 12 years say that a lack of workers with sufficient skills is increasing job site risks. Sponsored by Case Construction Equipment, our workforce development series of interviews will take a closer look at the challenges, solutions, and opportunities facing the construction industry's workforce. Hi everyone, I'm Diana Henry here at CONEXPO 2020, and joining me now is Eric Zieser from Case. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Pleasure
to be here.
Big news today. Just announced the first fully electric backhoe loader. Why go electric with this product line?
Exciting day. We just debuted half an hour ago our first live demo in the booth, the backhoe loader. Why? Case 1957 invented the backhoe loader, so with that regard, it's only fitting for us to also be the first fully electric backhoe loader on the market. But when you look at the industry and the evolution of compact equipment and what's going to go electric, the backhoe loader made sense for us for really two reasons. One, as I said, being the inventor of the backhoe loader in 1957, but secondly, the industry demand. Utilities, municipalities, the key product in their range is the backhoe loader still. The Swiss Army knife of a product is utilized in their applications inside the urban areas. It's used in very different applications where it's not a high production wheel loader, a high production wheel excavator. The backhoe loader being the Swiss Army knife of a product, it kind of does a little bit of work on the back side, the front side, lots of idle hours. So the backhoe loader is very fitting for converting that to electric, where you can save that downtime, wasted diesel hours, wasted diesel fuel, convert that into zero emission, zero battery consumption on the backhoe.
Is this where you're getting some of the feedback from customers saying, we want this? And so what benefits did you really kind of mold into this new machine?
Sure. Yeah, the other reason why I chose the backhoe loader is a dual approach. From a company standpoint, Case Construction, our goals of sustainability and decarbonization, we've been looking across electrification on the various product lines, from our compact, our mini excavators, CTL, skid steer loaders, trying to figure out which product's the first to market. However, based on the customer demand, we chose the backhoe loader most suitable because we actually have customers coming to us requesting to electrify their Case backhoe loaders in the marketplace today. We've currently sold 2 machines already to 2 key utility companies in the state of New York, partnered with them directly on this program, taking their feedback, how they're using the backhoes today in their environment, looking at that data with them, and then evolving this machine to meet their needs and their future expectations.
All right, New York's got the first 2. When will we see more of these on the job site?
We don't have an exact date yet for when we're going to go to the next ones out. We're here at CONEXPO. Project Zeus is a little different than 580 EV. So we've got 2 names going for the machine. Project Zeus, as we've done at Case through various Project Minotaur in CONEXPO 2017, Project Tetra at BAMA in 2019. Project Zeus is our code name for this project. We were teasing ahead of time, working as a team on this, but really the machine is 580 EV. We look at our customer machines, the 580 EV is a bit different than Zeus. Zeus is a little more flashy, trying to judge operator awareness, customer awareness that, hey, this machine is electric. It can be electrified. But then as you go to the 580 EV, it's a practical, ready to work machine, our standard ruggedized exterior as a Case backhoe has in the market. Our next machine's coming out. We're trying to decide, based on the intentions of customers here at the show, who's really willing, who wants to partner with us on this to make sure that our first pass on this is right and for the market. The technology is rapidly changing electrification. With our company, we have FPT, we have the recent acquisition or partnership, in Nikola, and with that, the technology available to us is kind of going very quickly right now. So we're at a decision point trying to figure out how fast we bring out mass production of this vehicle versus taking it in smaller steps, working with close customers, and refining this product line over the next months and years. So right now we're taking customer intent right now, working with them directly on our team, trying to figure out who we want to choose as our select partners going forward. Awesome. So the exact date, we'll find out here.
TBD is what I'm hearing on that.
2020. I'm not saying further than that.
Great.
But whether it's next month or in 5 months, depends on how many customers I get lined up, and we got to then decide, who's the best for us.
That's great news. So if you're not at CONEXPO, how can somebody learn more?
So KC.com, obviously. We've also got a landing page dedicated to our 580 EV backhoe loader. So KC.com/580EV, or go to KC.com and click on the landing page there. It'll direct you to that.
Wonderful.
And with that, there's a brief survey questionnaire, and that'll come directly to our product management team to vet out those customers to figure out who is our next best candidate.
Julie Davis from AEM joins us now. Julie, thanks so much. Great show so far.
It is just an amazing show, so yes.
It's so much fun to see everybody walking around and checking out all the equipment.
It is. It's just packed. It's unbelievable how it takes over the city, right?
It is awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about AEM and the efforts that you guys are doing to help with the pipeline for manufacturing and trades.
Absolutely. I am delighted and excited to talk about what we are doing. Across the industry sector, there is just a skilled labor shortage. And so, obviously that impacts our members in just multiple ways and across the industry sector. So what we are looking at doing is really trying to help our members understand the workforce development spectrum. And that spectrum is everything from, how do you do recruitment and outreach to what do your HR practices look like, and do you have best practices in place? What is the culture of your organization? So once you get those people in, are they going to stay? And then how do you turn around and make sure that you, what we like to say, own your backyard? How do you invest in your community? How do you get engaged so that just like you go out and market your product, you're actually marketing your brand in your community, and your community is aware of what you do and what opportunities exist in your community. And then for those larger organizations where maybe they already have a very established workforce development program or training, what is that next step for them? So we want to make sure that we're really looking at that workforce spectrum from beginning to really advanced, and make sure that along that journey our members have best practices in place so the foundation is strong, and they always have that option of taking another step. And so for those larger organizations, what can they do as far as regional initiatives? And so we're mapping that out. We are putting together a workforce development toolkit that really frames out for our members what those basic fundamental best practices are, and gives them ideas so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So some of it is capturing some of the best practices that our members are already doing. Some of it is directing them to articles and information and research about things that they should know. Some of it is introducing them to industry partners that we have determined are really valuable. And then some of the things that we're doing is just giving them some of what does a good flyer look like if we're going to do a manufacturer day? How do I communicate with the school, and what are the things I need to remember to say? So really those resources and templates that will be available in that. So that's a big piece of what we're going to do. And then this fall we are actually doing a Workforce Solutions Summit. And I had to laugh because coming into this industry, I looked around and we had a lot of conversation about workforce development. And a lot of those conversations were, here's all the challenges, here's what's going wrong with workforce development. And I thought,
where are the solutions?
Yes, let us have a seminar and a conference that is about what can you do today? How do I get workers in my facility today? Where are the pools of people that I can pull from? How do I build that pipeline so that I know that I'm channeling workers in for tomorrow? And then what are those best practices that I need to be aware of? And so we're going to really focus on everybody walking out the door with a handful of solutions at that conference. So those are some of the things that we have in the channel, and as you can tell, I'm excited about it, passionate about it.
Yeah, which is great. You need to be, right? So does the best practice or the pipeline change when you recruit different demographics, millennials or generations, the youth, the veterans, underemployed groups? Does that change?
It does, absolutely. And I kind of like to group them in categories of who could walk in your door today and what are those pools of populations. So, we look at veteran recruitment, and, I had a member say, there's thousands of organizations that promote, hiring veterans. Who do we turn to? Where do we look at? And so we want to vet some of those best of the best and provide that. But veterans are a perfect fit for the construction industry, coming out having worked with heavy equipment and then coming back in. And a lot of the organizations that we will be recommending are organizations that spend the last 6 months of military service doing that trade skill training with the veterans so that when the veterans come out, they've got some of those foundations in place. So that is
brilliant, right? Because then they're already leg up, already in the motion. It's not just you're out and all of a sudden now what, right?
And they have a lot of the soft skills that companies are looking for. And so part of the toolkit is a veterans recruitment toolkit. And it talks about what do you need to understand about hiring veterans. Quick references to, well, if they have this in their military background, how does that kind of relate to what I'm looking for? So, some of that translation. The other part of that is, what does that veteran culture look like that they are coming out of so that we can better frame that and they're comfortable in our environment? And those are important things to think about if you're going to have long-term success. So, and the other piece of immediate hire is really the criminal justice system. That is a whole new piece of the puzzle that I think really is a win-win. People who have been incarcerated, who have made a bad choice, who go into a training program while they're incarcerated, and then when they're coming out, they're ready to turn that new leaf over. And so we're really encouraging organizations to look at the skills that they can bring, the rate of return for people who have been incarcerated, who go through programs, who plug into sustainable wage living jobs. The rate of going back is just so low. And so it's really a win-win, and I think there are many states that are investing heavily at the state level to make sure that training happens. Looking at the skills gap, looking at the available population, it's really something that if companies have not considered that in the past, they really need to look at it. There's also some fantastic tax incentives for businesses to do that. So.
Wow.
That's another big one.
That is that, but a lot of people can probably attend that part of the seminar coming up.
Yes, yes, and that we will have a speaker there that is talking about it, and state by state there can be some differences, but federally, what does that picture look like? Because that is a huge conversation of where can we find some talent pool from. So
untapped resource there in a lot of ways. So what are some of the major factors affecting workforce development in the construction industry?
I think so I have to say that I came into this industry from outside the industry and spent a lot of time really looking at what are the issues, what are the research reports coming out, where are those challenges identified, and you can sum it up by saying, this is an industry that hasn't done a great job telling its story. And so we have a lot of old perception and old conversation that kind of percolates through this. And the truth of the matter is that we have a dynamic, technology-driven, exciting story to tell. We have a story that involves environmental impact in a positive way. We have all of this emerging technology, just really exciting things. So it's not that we don't have that story, it's that we haven't told it. And so we have this couple of generations. We have the parent generation that knows the old story. We have the youth generation that hasn't heard the story that is new and exciting. And so a lot of that is just learning how to tell our tale. And what is exciting for me, and I think this is really important that the industry understand that, is that education understands that our story has changed. And I think there's a lot of misconception of industry to education, saying that education doesn't care about us or they don't know. Education is very aware that there is this skill gap. Education is struggling to understand our story and understand how they can support directing kids into our story. And so when we look at the challenge that construction has as an industry sector and how are we going to fill that skill gap that we have, I look at that and say we have a lot of foundational things that we need to do to get people to understand what best practices are. And after that, that industry education partnership is the gem that will help us solve this problem. And we really need to communicate well with education. We need to help them help us, and it really needs to be a partnership. It is not about I'm going to go and yell at education, or I'm going to go tell them what I think that we should do. It is about understanding education understanding us, coming together and making sure that we have some industry standards, we have certifications, we have some things that really help that flow and that are really wins for students. So when they go and get certified or they get a credential that education has put together, that we've input those standards, and that when they come out with that as an industry, we value that. Because I'll tell you what, industry values a 4-year degree, but we complain about people getting them all the time. Industry does a real bad job valuing credentials and certifications, but if we want people to go that route, we need to equally value that when they come to our door with that. And so that is my thought of the day.
Julie's thought, the bubble pops up, right? Is culture different between the different groups of population, whether it be a younger millennial or Gen Y versus the veteran versus someone who's looking for that career change?
Absolutely. I think there's been a huge changes between generations. You've got the boomers, you've got the millennials, you've got Gen X and Gen Y, and I think that there are definitely things that speak to us differently. I think the biggest challenge and opportunity is as we are looking at bringing that generation Z in and working with the millennials, they want a better balance of life. And at the end of the day, they've asked for things that my generation and the other generations have maybe secretly wanted, and we've never actually asked for. And what's interesting is that, the millennials are like, we want this, and we're gonna go somewhere else if you don't give it to us. And so they're changing that tide. And so on one hand, it benefits our older workers because they're like, hey, we might like a better life-work balance too. So I think that is something that we need to think about in a positive way. I also think about things like, having a schedule where people know when they are going to come in and work, and I have worked with some companies where they don't have a schedule, and it's like, maybe they have a right to expect a schedule. And so, just things that we need to do that are a little different, even if it's a third generation company. You really need to look at those things, because if you're not willing to change, we are in an environment that it is a change or die environment. If you're not willing to change, they're not going to be willing to work for you. You need to figure it out. And again, there's help to do that. But it is literally, if you are stubborn and you're not going to change, you're going to have a bigger shortage than somebody else who is willing to change. So that is, again, kind of the summation of it all is fair or not, right or not, this is the world we live in.
And AEM can help you stay relevant with all the resources that you have.
Yes, and that is our goal, is to really understand where our members are beginning, what the opportunities are around them, and it's almost like coming up with a tray of desserts and saying, which one of these would you like? You don't have to have them all. So choose a workforce development opportunity. You don't have to do them all.
Right. Or
just
right now,
get
maybe
started.
It's a 3-year plan or whatever it is.
Yep.
Right?
But it is all about taking some new steps, making sure those foundation pieces are there, and you're going to have to put a little elbow grease in it. And I don't think this is an industry that is scared of hard work. So I think it's okay.
Not in the least. And I'm joined by Jim Colvin from Sirius Labs. Jim, thanks for joining me.
I'm delighted, thank you.
All right. Tell me, what is Sirius Labs? I got to know.
Sirius Labs is a workforce development company based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Now that doesn't sound very interesting, but what we do that's different is we apply very leading edge technologies to create training products for a new generation of heavy industrial worker.
Wonderful. Virtual reality training, is that what we're talking about a little bit?
That's certainly one of our products for sure.
Okay, how does that improve a contractor's skill then?
Great question. We get this quite often. With using virtual reality, we can immerse an operator right into a virtual environment that is so real that it actually triggers the cognitive part of their brain that is actually the fight or flight mechanism, because they're actually doing. And when you actually have somebody in that state, you can train them so much better than just trying to passively learn through instruction. We've been testing this out for several years now with the advancements of virtual reality, and found that doing rather than passive learning dramatically increases, up by about 90%, increases people's retention And the best part about it is it's objective, it's always the same. We can measure so many things that can't be measured by a trainer with a clipboard. And that can be applied to any kind of situational where we can put people actually in harm's way without actually putting them in harm's way. So it's a real benefit from objective learning, doing things that you couldn't otherwise do in a safe environment on the real machine or real environment, and it's objective, so it can be it's always measured the same.
Adoption rates pretty high with your customers?
Right. Well, I think construction is an industry certainly that is slower to move. The traditional training methodologies have been around a long time. But when we look at the adoption rates now, where we can absolutely demonstrate high value returns for large general contractors, for instance, to be able to make sure that all of the operators on the equipment on their site, whether subcontracted work or their own people, actually have the skills to do that job the right way and the safe way. So that means you can actually audit them all going in. It's kind of like doing a CAT scan or an MRI before you actually get on the real equipment. Not only we can assess where you are as far as competency, but then we can steer you into a remediation path to raise that up so that all operators on all equipment are going to be better, faster, and most importantly, safer.
Yeah, there's got to be benefits from a safety perspective when it comes to training people up, making sure they're checked all the boxes when they go through that training.
Absolutely. In fact, that's our mantra. It's making people have the right to go home safely every night. And that's something that's always applied in the aerospace industry. They've had simulators for decades. The military, same thing. But what we're doing is we're taking something would normally have cost $250,000 and up, and we're putting it into a price point with way better fidelity and performance than traditional simulators, so that it's available for that small contractor, that small training center, as well as the large GCs and rental companies.
Accessibility must be huge.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, we sincerely believe that it should be like, porta potties on a site. It should be able to test somebody with that kind of convenience.
Standard, yeah, right. So you've got some news.
We do. We're very excited. So our flagship product is a mobile elevated work platform that has a boom lift and a scissor lift. But we're now venturing very much into seated motion simulation, which is really exciting for us. So we're launching our, it's called a universal motion base. And the two products that we've developed that are going on it, and you can demo them in beta over at our exhibition booth, is a rough terrain forklift, as well as a counterbalance forklift. It's very exciting development, and we now can have the capability of adding multiple pieces of equipment onto that same chassis. So Tuesday could be forklift training, Wednesday could be telehandler training, Thursday could be commercial drivers training, and the opportunities are endless, earth moving, you name it. So we're very excited about that.
As you should be. Wow. Let's talk a little bit looking into the future, crystal ball, right? Where is training heading?
Oh, great question too. I mean, I think, I have young children, and they've never been in a world where high-speed internet and adoption of new technology has not been available to them. So I believe that the guys my age need to make sure that we're adopting these things, because these kids learn differently, and they'll let us know. I mean, there's a massive shortage in skilled labor in the construction industry, and it's global, and it's only going to people aren't coming into these trades. So if you want to draw them in and retain them, you have to show a commitment to them. So I believe training is going to be revolutionized in the next 10 years, where virtual reality, augmented reality, and the other types of ways to deliver, modalities to deliver training are going to be upended entirely.
Jim McAvoy from Workman Group, thanks so much for joining me.
Good to be here.
Oh, it's such a great show. Tell me about Workman's Center for Training and Technology.
The Center for Training and Technology started as an initiative basically within the Workman Group to emulate some of the work we do in Germany at our factories, which is specifically training technicians and service people. So when we came to North America, we were in the process of building out a distribution system, and we were bringing in highly innovative technology that required a lot of training. So since 2009, we've invested in the facility and really spread our wings to not only reach our own internal needs, but our dealers' needs, our customers' needs, and the needs of the industry. So it's been a 10-year development cycle with the center.
And not done yet, I'm sure.
Not done yet? No, plenty to do.
Right, so tell me how CTT aids in the workforce development and the whole industry outreach in general.
The CTT, again, for us, if I look at it internally from a workforce development standpoint, the need for competent service technicians, competent operators, evolves as quickly as machine technology evolves. So you have, as an OEM and an engineer that makes the equipment, we're the best source to understand how to use the equipment. So for us, being the engineer, being the designer of all these new technologies, it really goes hand in hand to say we should also train and be responsible as an OEM to our customers to make sure that the technology is being used very efficiently and in the way it was designed to be used. So again, it started as an internal workforce development initiative. It branched out into our distribution channel and ultimately to our customers. And now, given the state of the industry and the issue with workforce development in the industry, and I would say in the construction industry in general, as well as the specific needs of road building contractors, we've done outreach into a number of educational facilities. So we look at local high schools, we've reached into the local technical schools. We're actually aligned with some 4-year universities and some 2-year universities with certificate programs. We have complementary course development that we do with them, and the curriculum is designed to basically feed the need of the college certificate process, as well as achieve for us what we want in educating the future workforce.
Sounds like a win-win.
It works out great. It's a place for us to find good people, and it certainly serves the industry, and I think serves the construction industry as a whole, to be investing in training young technicians.
Responses have been just phenomenal across your dealers and your customers, as well as internally, right?
Very good, yeah, very good. It's taken time, and we really took the approach, a very academic approach, and hired individuals from academia to come in to basically look at course curriculum structure, how you deliver the educational material, and we really run it like an academic facility. And from that standpoint, the way the material is delivered to these young students really lets it sink in. It really lets it sink in. So these people that will go through the trainings, whether they're technical trainings, whether they're application trainings, will end up either for self-serving purpose, being very pleased with how the training process went. They understand our technology better. Whether they go to work for the distributor, whether they go back to work for a customer, or they just stay in the industry, we now have people that understand our technology, our innovation, and I think in general how a leader in the industry can position itself as a provider of not only high quality equipment, but also a very high level of competency training inside the industry.
Richard Willis from Napa, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the 3 different task groups that you have in this new Workforce Development Committee that you formed.
So we started a new Workforce Development Committee in 2019, and we really wanted to try to tackle 3 areas where Napa could have an influence. And so the 3 task forces we developed were the communications, the partnership, and the promise task force. And the communications was really about developing kind of a unified message that the entire industry could use when talking about recruiting and getting new people into our workforce. So we're all speaking the same language and we're all saying the same thing. The partnership task group is realizing Napa alone isn't enough to do everything. And so what are other people doing that we can leverage, and what are we doing that other people could also use to help be involved? And then the final task group is the promise task group. Because when we invite all these people into our industry to work with us, we're telling them we're going to do something for them. Whether that's give them an opportunity for a career, give them good benefits, but people are leaving, and they're leaving for some reason. So the Promise Task Group is really helping people get the tools to deliver on the promise they're making to those future employees.
So let's talk a little bit about the opportunities and synergies that you have found by partnering with these various groups, government agencies, associations, the education groups.
So the big organizations we've been working with right now, of course there's Federal Highway Administration. They started a massive workforce development initiative in the last year or so called Roads to Your Future. And we've recently signed on to be partners with them. And it's really about delivering things down and tools down to the grassroots level so that in states and cities and communities, they can be the ones making the change for the workforce in those areas. But then there are other organizations like the Future Farmers of America. There's a workforce there, and as some of the family farms are shrinking, people are growing up having worked around heavy equipment their whole lives, and we have an opportunity for them to continue to do some of the things that they're used to and they enjoy, and they've got good skills at that we may not have to do as much training on. But really it's about thinking about the local level in a lot of these works, because that's where it's going to happen. You can only do so much from on top.
Yeah, right. Top down versus down up. Right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about surveys that you've done. And do you have one coming up for 2020 for employee retention?
So what we're doing in 2020 is we're looking at what we're offering our employees. And that's from the people working in the field to the engineers to the office staff, and getting an understanding, hopefully on a regional level, what are we doing in terms of benefits? What are we doing in terms of things like insurance, comp time, but even engagement? What are we doing to make sure people feel valued and feel heard in the workplace? And so we've just launched our first survey. We're going to do this in 3 parts over the course of the year, and that's really now focusing on what are we doing for those people working at our plants, out on our crews, and even in like QC technicians and laboratories. And it's really understanding from an HR level, what are we offering them? We'll do the same thing in about 90 days with the engineers, the managerial staff, to get at what are we doing in terms of benefits. But the really interesting twist on it all will be the third survey that comes out, which we're giving then to the engineers, the office staff, and the field crews to say, hey, what do you value? And see if there's a disconnect between what we're offering and what they're wanting.
That's going to be huge, right?
But that's going to tell us where we're strong and where we need to keep working. But it's also going to tell us where do we need to focus our efforts, because right now this is a massive problem. And so this helps us focus and put our time and our money in the right areas to really help people develop the tools they need to then deliver on those needs and on those wants from the employees.
Wow.
So we're hoping to accomplish this really over the course of 2020, and then the report will hopefully roll out around our annual meeting next year in Orlando in 2022 in February.
Well, we look forward to seeing those results.
Thank you.
Tom Doyle from ARA. Tom, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about ARA Rental Works.
Sure, thanks. I think before we get into the Rental Works, what predated that or what developed from ARA Rental Works was in 2019, we went back to our members and said, what's the #1 initiative we have in our industry, in the rental industry? And across the board, large and small members from either the rental company standpoint or from the supplier standpoint to the rental companies said workforce development. They had issues in the fact that both sides of the aisle and the rental aisle were growing. And there were a lot of retirements coming out of that, so they needed to grow the workforce and replenish the workforce. So it became our #1 initiative. So we decided we've got to do something with that. And we spent 5 or 6 months interviewing, surveying members, and developing a workforce development strategy. Our marketing department came up with this ARA Rental Works campaign. And really what we did then is launch the first initiative in February in Orlando at the annual ARA show.
And the response, what has it been?
Well, the response has been pretty good. Actually, it's been very positive. What we did is day one, or on February 11th, we brought in a bunch of the educators and influencers from across the country, as well as 3 local schools, technical schools, to develop really what the strategy is for us going forward. The next day then we invited those same people, as well as 300 technical trade students from 3 different colleges in that area, to bring back some awareness of really what the rental industry is and what it's going to become and the job opportunities that are available. So from all areas of input, it was positive.
That's good news. Talk a little about the elements. What are the elements of this initiative?
Well, so what we looked at is trying to figure out how do we help attract and recruit people into this business. The rental business has been around, ARA has been around since 1955, so it's not a new association, it's certainly not a new industry, but the awareness doesn't seem to fit that way. There is a real call for more awareness about really what the rental industry is. So that's another big part of this initiative. So we want to help our members recruit, attract, but then also onboard or retain the employees once they get on board.
Yeah, that's key, right?
Yes.
Spend a lot of time and money trying to train people and then they leave.
And that's it. So we want to, once we get them in, we want to keep them as well. So that's a major initiative. That's really the genesis of what's happened. And so far, it's been positive feedback. That was our first event that we have done of anything of that nature. So had a little bit of question marks going in, but all good so far.
Wonderful. Career opportunities, what are those like in the rental industry?
Great question. So when we surveyed our members, really came back, the number one requirement right now is equipment technicians. So again, that was the focus at the ARA show for those 2 days, was on the equipment technicians. A close second was CDL drivers. A lot of industries are looking for both those two jobs or those people, but that was our number two. And then number three, we also represent the event industry. And on that side of it, they just need more laborers, more tent installers to get the work done. A lot of the business now is going towards rental, so on both the equipment and event side, a real need for just more growth in the workforce.
Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of working in this industry.
Well, one of the things we found out is that, being a well-kept secret, we went back and asked people, once we told them about this, what do you think? And they said, well, we love a couple things. One, we love the fact that rental companies are situated throughout the U.S. and Canada. That's primarily our focus right now. So they can have a geographical diversity. They can go from any city, really, across the United States and up in Canada, and have a rental job and then a career. So if they want to stay in a geographic area, great. If they want to switch and go to a different area, there's a rental company in that area. So that was a big one. The second one is the opportunity to grow into a career from a job. So there was a lot of entry-level jobs that will end up into a nice career, and the compensation and benefits are pretty attractive.
That's a great distinction, right? Not just a job, it's a career as well.
Definitely.
Does it differ from military versus the younger generation?
I think it's a great question. We're not targeting any specific group, but we are certainly going after some of the younger group to let them know that this is an opportunity. And we have found that the military do provide a solid training background for our type of work. So we are looking at kind of focusing on those two without excluding others.
How do you see it evolving over time? Because you're really just kind of dipping your toes into the water right now with coming off of the February event.
It is. So while the industry and our members have been looking for members, it's ARA's first foray into looking at how we can help our members grow. So we see it evolving into the continuation of this microsite, this ARArentalworks.com, which you can go back in and look at all the best practices now. You can look at job descriptions, both written and through video. And we are going to start launching, for the first time, an ARA standpoint, a job and career fairs across the U.S. We're going to participate more in the ones that exist today and start doing our own. So a couple new and exciting initiatives to kind of make this whole thing work.
Well, thanks for being a resource out there, because it's really important. Here with Drew Carruthers from CM Lab Simulations. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, simulators, hot topic. Tell me about the role this plays in the skills gap that we're seeing.
So what simulators do is they're a very objective tool, and what they allow is for operators to be compared in a very apples to apples way. Simulators nowadays have a very high degree of realism that represents their experiences on the real equipment. So if you're able to assess them in a very even way that even the end user can set the scoring criteria, you can understand the skills and the skills gap that need to be focused on to bring everyone up to a higher level of standards.
And consistent.
And consistency, yes, across the board, yes.
So how is this going to help find our next generation of workers?
Well, we actually need the next generation to come in and be interested. And our industry is great. It takes very good care of people, and we need to have that conversation with them. So sometimes equipment is very noisy and loud and daunting, but what we do with simulation, it's a quiet room, it's a safe environment, and we can attract people who aren't necessarily endeared towards construction or haven't even thought about it, and say, come take care of us. You know, the unions take very, very good care of you. You start with a very, very good pay, and you're actually very good. So allowing that to have that conversation with them while watching them operate and recognizing that raw talent that they have, we bring smart people into our industry because we are transitioning from operators into systems monitors, and the role of the operators is becoming more and more important, and we need those brains into our industry.
Overcoming some barriers that people might have.
Absolutely, and the fears that they think that they impose on themselves, but they're actually excellent operators and just need to be given that opportunity. Yes.
That's great. So risk mitigation, obviously, but what about the financial benefit for a company if they're looking to bring simulators into their world?
Yeah, so more and more, in the same way that cell phones started off as a risk mitigation, that you don't want to be caught with your car breaking down, so that you worry about an accident. What simulators do now is they work more about productivity. So you can do the job, but you can also do it more efficiently. So when we work with industry, we're getting the operators who are becoming more efficient. They're scooping more and reducing their cycle times. And that translates into big savings out on the industry when they're working on larger sites. When you're working with schools, they have a higher instructor to student ratio. They have the ability to have people get more experience on the equipment, which reduces their insurance, reduces their maintenance, reduces their fuel costs, and gets them on the equipment more. So it returns the investment very, very quickly, and also increases the amount of experience that these guys have on the simulators, or girls.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Does it vary depending on if I'm a small company, would this work for me versus a large company?
Absolutely. There's no gap anymore. I mean, there's simulator solutions that even exist on your phone if that's what you need. So depending on what your end objectives are, there are simulation solutions that will plug into budgets, constraints, sizes, and end objectives, whether you're looking to people to take them to a control familiarization or to efficiency training or even beyond that.
So oftentimes on a job site, there's more than one piece of equipment out there, right? Yeah. Talk about how this can make the process out there as a collaboration a much better way to work.
Well, to get the younger operators to understand that they're not working in isolation, that they're working in collaboration with a signalerman, or they're working in collaboration with another operator on site, and that they're being aware of their environment. So what simulation can do is help give them that experience and put multiple people into one site and allow them to experience the idea of teamwork. To, if you're a crane operator, to be really depending on the consigns of the signaler. If you're in earthworks, to be working with that other operator in a team environment.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It takes us to that next level, that next generation, and keeps our brains thinking in a whole different way.
But we need to, I mean, this is an exploration of technology here, and what we need to do is we need to attract those people. We have a great industry, and we need to show people that we are forward-looking and we do warrant their attention to come in and to help us take it to the next level.
David Coe from Orion Talent joins me on the couch today. Let's talk a little bit about veterans and the role that veterans can play in the construction industry. It's a great topic and we definitely need to talk about it.
No, it is. And Diana, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak a little bit today and just cover this topic. As far as the construction industry goes, military veteran talent has been a terrific resource for it for a long time. That's partially because each calendar year, more than 175,000 people leave active duty military service in the United States and come back out into the private sector. And so many of them bring intangible traits such as leadership, communication ability, organization, and just frankly work ethic that has correlated really, really well into a wide range of aspects of the industry over the last 20 to 30 years.
It's a great fit for construction.
It is.
Shortage, right, of talent out there to begin with and workers. So what types of functional roles does a veteran bring that they might have learned in the military that really melds well?
Sure. I would kind of break that down into two types of functional areas. The first would be a technical area. So there's a wide range of job families in the U.S. military, from engineering to horizontal construction and development to facilities and even electrical and maintenance equipment systems. So you do have a great foundation of knowledge with technical skills, technical training, and aptitude that's a great building block for a lot of construction industry organizations to use. But in addition to that, the intangible skills that I mentioned earlier really do correlate well. One of the things that most organizations who've had a lot of success in construction have found with military veteran talent is that oftentimes the work ethic, the minimal amount of training that's needed for these folks, and frankly just the culture match is terrific.
What key mistakes are companies making when it comes to hiring veterans?
Mistakes are made every day in hiring, and in this day and age with roughly a 42-year low in unemployment in the United States, we watch organizations on a daily basis make missteps with recruiting and hiring, whether they're focused on military veterans or not. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that we see today specific to military talent is having a stereotype, a bias, or a preconception of either the type of talent that you have to go find, i.e. we've only ever hired Navy technicians, so we therefore can only ever go hire Navy technicians, not realizing how much other jobs, other branches of the military have changed over the years. And then two, pigeonholing traditional military hires into job families where they've had success before, but not being willing to look at using their same skills in other jobs.
And technology, right? You think about our military, they're exposed to some of the best technology that's out there.
That's right.
So they have that innovation already built into them and the wherewithal to grasp that new technology.
They do. It's a great point, Diana, and it frankly changes all the time. So a candidate who leaves the U.S. military today, regardless of which branch of the military they're coming from, is frankly leaps and bounds ahead in terms of skilled technical ability, aptitude, communications background, and even just the product lines that they've worked with compared to that same candidate 8 to 10 years ago.
Are there best practices you guys give to companies?
Yeah, we do all the time, and we always try to do that free of charge and just to make them available to any organization that wants to learn. One of the most common best practices that we always try to recommend is don't worry about what the Joneses are doing, meaning looking left, right in your industry to a direct competitor, an indirect competitor, and then trying to mirror or mimic a veteran talent strategy that they might be using. It's probably not going to work for you. Each organization is different. The number one best practice we always recommend is focus in-house first and determine what do we need with military talent, what is our plan for it, and let's right-size a military talent initiative for us, not worrying about what everybody on our right and our left is doing.
Lead in your own way,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
hire a veteran.
It's great to do.